You guys both have the opportunity to do anything you want right now in your career. Why the Neil Armstrong story? Why right now?
Well, there are many reasons. I mean, this is one of those films where it's hard to pick one, and it was just, you know, I think if you say why right now, you know, I think it's always feels relevant to tell the story of people who live their lives out of their own self-interest, you know, and the Armstrongs are certainly wonderful examples of that. Mm-hmm. But it's also it's just such an incredible story of what we're capable of when there's enough collective will to do so. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I think it's a story that we think we know, but when, you know, what Damien, when he came to me with the idea, it was just, I realized just how little I did know. Mm-hmm. And just how more extraordinary and heroic it all seems when you know just how hard it was, how much sacrifice was involved.
Yeah, I think we've forgotten almost that these were human beings. These were ordinary human beings with fears and insecurities and losses and suffering and hopes and dreams. These weren't superheroes that sort of descended from on high. This wasn't an easy thing. It wasn't a foregone conclusion. This has become kind of mythologized in the almost 50 years since. But at the time, it was radical, it was new, it was dangerous, it was scary. It at times tore families apart. Mm-hmm. We wanted to really look at just this one family, Neil and Janet, of course the family that, you know, the family of the man who made those first steps, and actually look at what they went through on a day-by-day basis, honestly, in that 10-year period that led up to the moon landing.
I know you had extensive research. I know you talked to people who knew him. Was there anything that you discovered about him, or what was the moment where you said, I can do this? I can do justice to this man?
The reason I felt that I could do this was not because of, I guess, one piece of information that I learned, but was that his sons were going to be so involved, and that, you know, I had the opportunity to meet his ex-wife, Janet Armstrong, who Claire Foy plays. His sister June took us to the farm where he was born and grew up. You know, the extraordinary amount of goodwill and support that I felt from the people who knew and loved Neil really bolstered me and made me feel like, you know, with that help and goodwill, you know, that we could do this.
I think the thing that struck me most about the film was how intimate it is. Mm-hmm. You know, we've seen the right stuff, and I was like, well, we've done this, but being so intimate. And the thing that I loved most was the sequences inside the planes and the capsules. Mm-hmm. Absolutely terrifying. How did you find out what that was like? Were there films? Were there first-hand accounts? How did you construct those moments?
It's a piecemeal, you know. There's some great archival footage. That's kind of where I started. Just, you know, stuff that the astronauts themselves would shoot inside these capsules, and immediately that just opened my eyes to just a different way of shooting space travel. I think we all kind of have grown up with thinking of space travel via movies as being high-tech and sleek and spacious, and you think of 2001 setting the bench, you know, the sort of being the benchmark for all that. But these were capsules the size of, you know, barely Volkswagens. These were things hurled atop missiles that often looked like products of the machine age, not the space age. Right. And these were people stuck inside them looking through, you know, grease-stained windows and barely being able to see. So the analog nature of that, how scary that must have been, how claustrophobic that must have been. Again, I think it just speaks again to the risk-taking and the heroism that was involved. This was not technology that had been perfected. This was stuff that was being made up as it went along.
Well, it's interesting. You said they're not superheroes, and maybe that's why we need this movie now. We are glutted with the superhero film, and I think we need to be reminded that these guys had their feet on the earth and had feet of clay.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that I guess I find it that much more inspiring, again, to think of them as real individuals and to think of someone like Neil Armstrong not being someone who was just chosen to be the one to walk on the moon right from birth, and to think of Neil and Janet as people who were taking it day by day and not sure what the next day would bring, and going through an enormous amount of you know, upheaval on a family level during this time. I think it just makes it that much more extraordinary what they accomplished.
I read that you did some improvisation. Mostly with the kitchen sequences. I think you referred to the movie as The Moon in the Kitchen. Did you discover anything with in those sequences about the character or the wife and the interaction with the kid?
Well, we actually started the film with a 2-week rehearsal period where we were in you know, a few of the locations that we would be using in the film. The Armstrongs lived in a cabin in Juniper Hills, and then they also lived in their you know, the house in Houston. And we were able to, for 2 weeks, improvise, and you know, even there's a line in the film, you know, you have to fail down here so we don't fail up there. And in a way, we were sort of, you know, trying to pull a page out of that book, actually, a lot of the stuff that we shot ended up working its way into the film, but it also set the tone for the way that we were going to work, which was in this very documentary style. But you know, it was interesting too, because the film felt like two movies. It was like this one film that we were making, this little documentary about the Armstrongs as a family, and then there was the whole other mission, space aspect of the film.
Ryan Gosling, Damien Chazelle, thank you.
Thank you.